Anakin prevented Order 66. In the original story, Anakin ended up submitting to the Sith Lord Darth Sidious and helping with the execution of the infamous Order 66. One of our viewers wondered, though, what if instead Anakin had prevented the execution of the dreadful command? That's what we'll be diving into today. So, get snug on your couch, settle in with a glass of spotchka, and get ready for another wacky what-if scenario. Our story begins in Palpatine's office following Mace Windu's defeat of the Dark Lord of the Sith. When Anakin barges in, he sees Windu about to execute Palpatine, and he is momentarily conflicted. He tells Windu that Palpatine deserves a fair trial, just like any other citizen of the Republic. Even if he was a Sith, Palpatine had been democratically elected by the population. In addition, the Jedi hadn't even given him a chance to relinquish his emergency powers yet. This was all just a recipe for disaster. Mace Windu takes pause, considering Anakin's position. In that brief moment, Palpatine releases another barrage of Force lightning upon Windu, which the Jedi deflects back at him. It's in this moment that Anakin realizes Palpatine truly is an evil man, not who he said he was, as he had taken advantage of Mace's moment of contemplation. In this instant, Palpatine pulls out a small communication device from his pocket, which, miraculously, he had managed to shield from the Force lightning with a small bubble in the Force. As he keeps firing at Mace with one hand, he dials Commander Cody and tries to execute Order 66 right there and right then. Anakin, seeing Palpatine trying to call for help, proceeds to intervene in the conflict. However, rather than cutting off Windu's hand, he instead slices Palpatine's hands off, and the comlink falls out the broken window with the severed limb. Palpatine screams in pain, calling Anakin a traitor. However, Anakin doesn't listen. Instead, he points his lightsaber at Palpatine's neck, joining Windu, and he tells the Chancellor that he is under arrest. Anakin had stopped Order 66. How does this impact the rest of the story? Let's keep going and find out. After Anakin betrays the Chancellor, he knows that there's no going back. He had made his decision, and he hoped that the Council would appreciate his devotion to the ways of the Jedi. Palpatine is escorted to the Jedi Temple and placed under high surveillance from other masters and troopers that were present there. Immediately, Mace calls Yoda on Kashyyyk and tells him what had transpired in the office. Yoda is proud of Mace and Anakin for their heroic actions, and he promises that upon his return to the galactic capital, he would interrogate the Sith Lord. Mace also requests that Mas Amida have a special session in the Senate in which he could explain everything that had transpired. Amida, who is now the interim chancellor, agrees. He calls an emergency Senate hearing, and Mace Windu is permitted to explain the situation to the galaxy at large. Anakin, who aided in the capture of Palpatine, stands by Windu and verifies his claims. The Senate meets with the Jedi with mixed reactions. Senators who were ready for the war to end and who had been growing suspicious of Palpatine's growing influence were pleased that the Jedi had decided to take things into their own hands before they continued to spiral out of control. However, many other senators saw this as a military coup. Supporters of Palpatine were not in favor of this action, and they decry Windu for the Jedi's lack of respect for due process. At this, Anakin starts to get frustrated. He raises his voice at the senators, asking if they were blind to the fact that they had been played by the Chancellor. At this, an uproar ensues, and Anakin is met with a flurry of boos from Palpatine loyalists. Mas Amida calls for order, and requests that Anakin observe proper procedure when he was speaking in the future. Anakin sits back down in the pod, allowing for the more diplomatic Mace Windu to take the reins for the rest of the hearing. Windu proposes that for the moment, the Jedi take control of the Senate and facilitate a peaceful transition of power, just as he had suggested in his deliberations with the Jedi Council mere days before. This is met with outrage. Even Mas Amida, the one who was supposed to be impartial, stands up and opposes this proposal. However, Mace says that it would only be fair to hold a vote. So Mas Amida calls for a vote in the Senate as to Mace's proposal. In the end, his idea is voted down, and Amida remains the interim chancellor of the Republic. As all of this is going on, because Order 66 never happened, Maul is being brought to Coruscant in the safe confines of a Venator, and he's kept locked away in the safe containment device that Bo gifted to Ahsoka following their reclamation of Mandalore. When Maul arrives at the detention facility, he's locked away, and he has no idea what's going on with regards to Sidious. However, he can sense something that has gone wrong with his old master's plan. There had been a variable that hadn't fallen into place, so perhaps there was hope for him after all. Maybe, just maybe, the Shadow Collective could come forward to be the dominant force in the galaxy. Maul contemplates this as he's placed in the lowest levels of the major Republic prison on Coruscant, doomed to solitary confinement. Meanwhile, in the Senate, more division begins to rise with regards to the legitimacy of Palpatine's arrest. Some senators believe that the Jedi had gone too far, and that Windu should be the one on trial for treason. Others debate them, stating that the increased militarization and centralization of the Republic government had been contrary to the pacifist principles upon which it had been founded, and that Palpatine's mobilization had been unconstitutional. Rather than focusing on the war against the Separatists, which was going on, due to the fact that Anakin didn't slay their corporate council in this timeline, they become internally divided. Eventually, after continued Confederacy attacks on key Republic worlds in the Mid-Rim, which deal massive damage to the Republic, and after Newt Gunray becomes the successor to Dooku as the ideological leader of the Separatist movement, the Republic High Command decides that enough is enough. Tarkin, Yularen, and some of the clone commanders who were feeling that the Senate was no longer working in the best interests of the war decide that they're going to perform an actual coup and temporarily restore order to the fractured Republic. Tarkin gets many hesitant clones on his side by telling them that as soon as the war is over, the Republic that they'd been fighting for would be restored to its original state. One day, as many of the senators are in a hearing and are once again bickering about Palpatine, Tarkin enters the chambers flanked by the entire Coruscant Guard, and he orders that Maz Amida immediately step down as Chancellor and grant all authority of leadership to Tarkin. Of course, Amida refuses, wondering what was going on. Tarkin then commands Commander Fox to kill Amida. So, Fox does as he's ordered, because good soldiers follow orders, and he puts a crisp laser blast through Amida's skull. The senators let out a collective gasp of horror as Tarkin claims an empty Senate pod, once again flanked by his soldiers, and announces that he will be taking over operations of the Senate from this point forward. As a staunch Palpatine supporter, Tarkin despises the Jedi for what they did to the former Chancellor. So, he orders that Mace and Anakin be put on trial for treason against the Republic. This once again divides the Senate. However, all of the senators in opposition keep their mouths shut for fear that Tarkin will silence them in the same way that he had just silenced Amida for speaking out. The two Jedi are arrested and placed on a kangaroo court, and because of Tarkin's prejudice against the Jedi, each of them are also found guilty. Tarkin uses his executive powers to free Palpatine, and together they take control of the Republic, side by side. Tarkin allows Palpatine to take over the political decisions, and he takes over the military side of things. Because of Tarkin's brutal tactics, and because Palpatine is back at the helm of the Republic, the Separatists are quickly crushed. Tarkin slowly begins to phase out the use of Jedi generals in favor of Republic officers, which Yoda, who's now returned to the temple from Kashyyyk, questions him on. Yoda is still in favor of the Jedi maintaining control over military affairs, as they have been keepers of the peace for generations. Tarkin scoffs at Yoda, telling him that the monks should not be the ones in charge of militaries. Once concessions are forced out of the Separatists, Palpatine and Tarkin maintain a firm grip on the galaxy. Because of their win over the Confederacy, and because of the growing unpopularity of the Jedi due to their poor handling of the war, both of them are incredibly well-liked. While they receive opposition in the Senate, they are widely loved, and now the Republic had order. Tarkin begins to expand the duties of the military to policing, and soon the Empire begins to be built, all but in name. As the Republic consolidates power and popular distaste for the Jedi becomes more common, the Chain Code program is rolled out. Palpatine reasons that this is so that citizens can better access services that will be provided by the Republic in the future, but in reality, it is so they can better surveil the population. Meanwhile, Palpatine visits Anakin in prison frequently. He asks if it had been worth it, betraying him just to end up rotting here in this cell. Anakin tells Palpatine that he had upheld his values, and that his wife was still alive, so he was satisfied. Palpatine smiles every time, offering Anakin the opportunity to join him so that together they could rule the galaxy. Anakin could be a hero of the Republic, and his children could be raised to become legends. Anakin still refuses, knowing that Palpatine was simply trying to manipulate him into turning to the dark side. Palpatine shrugs each time, allowing Anakin to make his decision. However, Palpatine knows that each time he visits the young Skywalker, he comes closer to accepting Palpatine's offer. One day, unexpectedly, there's an explosion in the Republic prison. Anakin and Mace, who had both been meditating, are jolted from their serene states. To their surprise, both of their cell doors are jammed open, and standing before them is a small contingent of bounty hunters led by Cad Bane, Aurra Sing, and the young Boba Fett. Bane tells the Jedi that he doesn't have time to explain, and that they'd better get their butts out of the cells quickly if they wanted to escape. Mace and Anakin end up following the bounty hunters, and they're confused when the group ends up descending deeper into the prison. Anakin asks who else they'll be freeing, but Bane tells him to shut up and let him do his job. When they get to the bottom level of the Republic prison, and after the hunters take out a few clones, the group approaches a lone cell in the far reaches of the last level. There, Anakin and Mace are surprised to see the bounty hunters free one of the most infamous thorns in the side of the Republic, Maul. Anakin lashes out verbally, questioning why they're freeing this scum too. Boba once again tells Anakin to be quiet, and the group escapes through some tunnels in the underlevels of the city. After the group escapes, the bounty hunters end up sneaking the group into the Jedi Temple. Bane tells the three of them to make their way into the Jedi Council chambers. There, they'd find their answers. The trio parts ways with the hunters, and they sneak into the council chambers. They find Rex, Obi-Wan, Yoda, Ahsoka, Padme, Mon Mothma, and Bail Organa, along with an assortment of other prominent Republic civil and military leaders. Anakin wonders what is going on. Yoda says that they've assembled a core group of people who believe that they can take down Palpatine. Many of the clones are frustrated that Tarkin lied to them about returning to a pre-Clone Wars standard of living, and a lot of the senators were concerned about the militarization of the Republic. Obi-Wan then says that they've freed the three of them, all who are enemies of Palpatine, to help them with their quest. Obi-Wan tells Maul that if he even hinted at stepping out of line, then he would see to it personally that the Dathomirian would never have the chance to see sunlight again. Maul assures them that he would comply, indicating that he just wanted to challenge Palpatine again for years. The plan is that the Jedi, the disgruntled clones, and Maul will do the same thing that Mace had done earlier. However, in this instance, they would be more prepared. Padme makes Anakin promise that he'll be safe, and Anakin tells her that he'll survive, for her, and for their future children. Soon, Palpatine and Tarkin would meet their match, and the very fate of the galaxy would be decided. In order to maintain the element of surprise, the mutineers go into the Senate building quite quickly after their secret meeting in the council chambers. When they arrive, Rex and his clones make it appear as though they're bringing a group of prisoners to the office of the Supreme Chancellor upon the request of Palpatine himself. They're allowed entrance, and they maintain the facade until they reach Tarkin's office. Rex attempts to tell the guards at the door the same excuse, but they don't buy it. At this point, Obi-Wan uses a Jedi mind trick and convinces the guards to open the doors for them peacefully. Upon entering, they find Tarkin at his desk, alone. He asks what the meaning of this is, and naturally, before the Jedi can say anything in response, Maul cries out in rage, reaching out with the Force and slamming Tarkin into the ceiling with incredible strength. He does this hard enough that Tarkin dies upon contact with the ceiling, and his limp body falls back to the floor. Yoda turns to Maul, telling him that they hadn't been there to kill Tarkin, and that wasn't a wise decision. Surely it would attract attention. Maul just smiles, saying that he didn't care. All that he wanted was chaos and revenge. Yoda was actually right. The group runs out of the room, and the guards rush in to see what the bang had been. They find Tarkin dead, and they raise the alarms. Soon, Republic soldiers flood into the Senate chambers, and the small group of rebels is forced to fight their way through a squad of clones. While Anakin, Ahsoka, and Rex try to preserve the lives of those that they're fighting, the other Jedi don't really seem to care. They go all out on their attackers, not caring if they end up killing any of them. Maul even seems to have fun with using the Force to cause chaos, laughing as he does so. Finally, after some challenges, they reach Palpatine's office, which is locked down. Anakin uses his lightsaber to cut through the Durasteel door, and he is met with a sneering Palpatine who has two cybernetic hands. The group enters the office, and Yoda points his saber at the political leader, telling him that his time was at an end. Palpatine simply smiles, and he utters the words that none of the Jedi expected to hear. Execute Order 66. At this, Rex can't help but turn on the Jedi with his fellow insurgent clone brothers. They try to resist, but they're unable to. Maul tells the Jedi to go deal with Palpatine, and that he'll deal with the clones. Anakin momentarily refuses, saying that he couldn't bear to see Maul execute his clone brothers. However, it's too late. Maul is already slicing and dicing the clone soldiers with a piece of the wall that he's torn out of Palpatine's office. Reluctantly, Anakin joins his Jedi colleagues in fighting Palpatine. Sadly, Maul kills Rex, along with many others in that clone contingent. Palpatine is severely nerfed due to his cybernetic hands. However, he's still able to take out a few of the less skilled Jedi who would come to take him on. In terms of fighting Yoda, Anakin, Obi-Wan, and Mace Windu all at once, though, he starts to struggle. Despite egging Anakin on to tap into the dark side, Anakin refuses. Anakin is fed up with Palpatine's games, and he had seen what a master manipulator that man was. Eventually, after tiring the Sith Lord out, the group of Jedi back Palpatine into a corner. In a brief fit of rage, Palpatine decides it would be better to take himself out and defeat the Jedi, rather than simply die at the hands of his ancestral enemies. So he begins trying to fire Force lightning from his cybernetic fingertips. This backfires, and the Chancellor ends up not only frying his circuitry, but also frying himself. Similar to what happens in The Rise of Skywalker with Rey, especially since all of the Jedi deflect the Force lightning back at him. After Palpatine's death, the clones make another switch. The leader of the Republic was dead. So, what now? The clones drop their weapons, unsure of what to do next. The Jedi proceed to leave the office with the confused clones, not knowing who to take orders from, and Yoda calls Bail, recommending that he call a special session of the Senate to explain what had just happened. With no clear successor to the Tarkin-Palpatine administration, the Senate is momentarily in shambles. As a formality, the longest-serving senator is briefly made the Chancellor, which, for the purpose of this story, we'll say is Bail Organa. Because he was a supporter of the coup against Palpatine and Tarkin, he starts to transition things back to the pre-Tarkin era days. His first and only act as Chancellor is to put forward a motion to elect someone new. Because Padme is about to give birth, Mon Mothma is perceived to be the best successor in the aftermath of all the galactic civil conflict. She takes the reins, stops the persecution of the Jedi, and begins to demilitarize the Republic as a time of peace takes hold. While there are grumblings about her being too soft on traitors, she appeals to many who had become frustrated with the constant turmoil that had engulfed the galaxy. Mon Mothma's administration also creates an effective retirement plan for clones and grants them citizenship, an initiative headed by Senator Chuchi. Padme gives birth to Anakin's children. Anakin lives to see them born, and he is with all of his Jedi comrades. Even Ahsoka is able to meet the twins. Anakin is ecstatic, happy to be a father. In the end, he ends up leaving the Order, amicably parting ways with his old friends in order to raise his children on Naboo and train them in the ways of the Force. Yoda asks if he wants the Jedi to take them when they become of age, but Anakin declines, saying that he wants to be involved with the lives of his children. Ahsoka goes with him to Naboo, and she finds solace in the fact that she can be an anti-figure to the Skywalker kids as they grow older. As for Maul, because of his role in the coup, he's granted freedom. Kenobi tells him, though, that if he was ever to encounter the Dathomirian again causing chaos in the galaxy, that he would ensure Maul never saw the light of day. Maul smiles, assuring Obi-Wan that he would be of no trouble. He blasts off in a spare Jedi starfighter, jumping back to Dathomir to regroup and see if he could find any of his brothers and sisters scattered across the galaxy. How do these events impact the end of our story? Let's find out. Finally, the galaxy seems to be in a state of peace. The Skywalker children happily grow up on Naboo and learn about the Force. The galaxy demilitarizes, Padme continues to serve in the Senate, and the Jedi once again end up becoming beacons of hope for the galaxy. While there are small factions of imperialists who do not approve of this new government, they're few and far between. Even Maul begins to find some solace when he manages to find a few of his Night Brother and Night Sister kin living on Dathomir, and he begins to rebuild the clans with them, even though they're few and far between. This new mission replaces his hatred of Obi-Wan, as he continues to love Mother Talzin and everything that she had done for him when he became a new man. The Shadow Collective, no longer being headed by Maul, falls to internal conflict, and the criminal organizations of the galaxy once again return to their competition of old. Everything settles down, and peace is restored to the galaxy. For once, it seems that everything had gone well for the heroes. Hey there everyone, I hope that you liked today's what if scenario. If you did, I'd recommend that you check out this other video, what if Padme killed Newt Gunray on Naboo? If you have any thoughts on this story, please let us know in the comments below. Would you like to see a part 2? What do you think would happen next? Have an absolutely incredible rest of your day, fellow Star Wars fans, and as always, I hope that you've had your delicious daily dose of Bantha Stew.